Going to be going over list in Python using Jupyter Notebook. So this is just a couple ways that you can create lists and then what you can do with this. So normally what we do is insert certain packages, or we import certain packages. However, just to create a list in Jupyter Notebook and using Python, we actually don't need any, except there is one at the end as an example, but other than that, there are none. I'm going to go ahead and import the one that we use at the very end, and that is just going to be Panda as PD. First one is going to be a simple do-it-yourself. So what that means and what it looks like is if we have a variable x and we want the numbers 1 through 10, we can just go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then there we go. We have created our list, and to see our list be printed, there we go. My favorite one that I like to do, and I use it very frequently, is called a list comprehension. And what that looks like is if we have some variable x, or we have a list named x, what we can do is I for I in range 1 through 11 to get that to get the numbers 1 through 10 again. And just to remind you, this right here, the number 11, the reason why we do it is because that's actually going to be n minus 1. If we just had 10, it would only give us the numbers 1 through 9. So we have to do 1 and then n plus 1, so that's going to be 11. And then to show you that this did work, and we have our number, here we go. We have our list x, and that has the numbers 1 through 10. Create a list is having a loop. So a list named x, we're going to make it empty, because we're going to be appending our numbers to it. So for I in range, again, remember, if we want 1 through 10, we have to do 1 through 11. We are going to take our list x, and we are going to append I. And then we can go ahead and print our list. And so what this does is, so for I, so it's going to take each number, and it's going to add it, append it to x. So we should get 1 through 10. And we in fact do. A list with numbers 1 through 10. The way that we can do a loop and make a list is, again, we have x and we have a empty list that we're going to be adding to. I equals 1. And then we can do while I is less than 11. Let's go ahead and append I to x. And then we're going to go ahead and add 1 each time it goes through. So again, we have an empty list. We're starting with I. While I is less than 11, we're going ahead and append it to x. And each time it goes through this, it's going to add 1. And we should have numbers 1 through 10 in our list. When we're creating our list, I'm going to use the list comprehension. What we can do is for I in range, I for I in range, again 1 through 11. But now if we want it to skip every 2, you are also able to do that. Just by adding that last parameter, we can do 3. And so adding the third parameter, then you can go by 2, you can go by 3. Now going off of our loop if we wanted to, or you could do this with the list comprehension, we can create a definition. So if we made list, and make sure it's blue, blue means that's what you're defining. If we went back and we see that list is actually green, you cannot call your function that because list is already a function built into Python. So we have list, let's give it an A and B, which are going to be our endpoints for x, and then we have x, which is our list, which is going to be equal to an empty list for now. And then for I in range A to B, because remember, whatever you're going to put here for your parameters, you have to have it within the definition. And then what we can do is x dot append will be I, which we already know, and then we're going to go ahead and return x. So we just created a definition now, so let's make sure our definition is correct. So instead of 1 through 10, let's go ahead and do 10 through 21, or let's go ahead and do 11 through 21. And then there we have it. We have 11 through 20. That's if you want to make a definition. You don't have to make a definition. It just depends if you want to use the ones and show it there, or if you make a definition, you can just easily, mess with your parameters and make it a little quicker. But you don't need to. Went over lists and how to create them. We can look at what if we wanted to add two lists together, and let's say we wanted to add their elements. So we're going to use the function that we just created. So I have my list 1 through 10. Then I'm going to have my list 11 through 21. So let's say I wanted to add the elements. So as you can see, we didn't add the elements together. So let's say that I wanted 1 plus 11. The add function is not adding the elements together. It's just adding them to the list. So instead of having 11 plus 1 as the first value, it's not doing that. It's kind of doing our append where we're just appending it. So it's one big list. But if we wanted to add them together, so let's say that we wanted to have a sum list, what we would do, and we can do this as a list comprehension, or you can do a loop, but list comprehension is going to be a little bit easier for this. So we have a plus b for a comma b, so a and b, in zip. So we're going to zip the two lists, meaning that those elements are now going to come together. So we wanted to add the 11 plus the 1. Now we're able to doing it. It's going to zip it. So we can go ahead and put our first list down, and then go ahead and do our second list. And then let's go ahead and print our sum list. And if you wanted to, you could have put the list comprehension in print. I'm just making it sum list so we can keep a little bit of better track. So as you can see, now that it has zipped it and we had added the two lists and their elements together, now we get the 12 and the 14 and the so on. And then if you wanted to, instead of having the sum and you can add them together, you can just call forth the sum tool. And so for x and zip, and then we can just go ahead and copy what we just did. Don't need to retype it all again. And then you can see we will get the same thing. And again, if you come up here, you change this to minus, it's going to change it. Well, I guess that makes sense because it's by, I think, a 10. And then you can do it for multiplication as well. So it's just what you need and what you're looking for. You don't have numbers. Let's say that you have characters. So for characters, we are also able to manipulate lists. Obviously a little bit different because we're not using mathematical values. So let's go ahead and create a list that has some fruit. So we can do apples, banana, and then we can also do cherry. So we created a list. So let's print our fruits. And there we go. We have our apple, banana, and cherry within a list. So let's say that we want to pull an element from a certain spot or index. What you can do is, now that we have our fruits as a list, we can just call back fruits 0 is going to give us the first element. So that's going to be 0, 1, 2 for the index. And then if we want to say, let's say we want to look at the first two, we can see it's apple and banana. If we want to look at the last two, it's saying go from index 1 and so forth, banana and cherry, which we know to be correct. Back to the sum list that we created, which I'm just going to go ahead and run it for us one more time. So we have our sum list here. We can also extend our list. So if we want to extend, let's say I wanted to add 2 more numbers to our sum list. We call forth extend. And then let's say I wanted to add 32 and 34 to my data. We can also go ahead and print our sum list. So as you can see, it's because I was multiplying. Let me add, sorry, let's run that one more time. And then we'll run this. And now you can see we have 12, 14, 16, and then we added 32 and 34 to our list. Let's say we wanted to remove a certain number. What you can do, again, so we have our sum list. We're going to call forth remove, and we want to remove 14 from our list. Let's go ahead and see. Now we have 12, 16. We removed 14. If you want to remove the last item, what we can do is sum list dot pop, leave it blank in that pop, and then go ahead and print. As you can see, now we're missing 34. If you want to remove at a certain index, we can go ahead and do sum list dot pop, and let's say we want to remove the first element. We are able to do so. Now we start with 16. And then you can also, lastly, you can insert at a certain index. So if we wanted to now take our sum list, and we wanted to insert at index 0, and we want to add 10 to it, we are able to do so. Now you can see we added 10 to the 0, making the next one index 1. If we want to check if an item exists, so let's go back and look at our fruits. Look back at our fruits again. Go ahead and copy and paste. What we can do is if apple is in our list fruits, print yes. So as you can see, it printed yes for us. So that is a way to check if an item exists within one of your list. So we can also do that with our sum lists. So if 18 in our sum list exists, print yes. As you can see, it says yes. Now if we change this to say 25, it won't do anything. So we now have if 25 is in the sum list, print yes. Now to change this, so if it's not, because if it's not, it's just going to be blank. We have to give it something else, so we can put else, print no. So now we know that 25 is not in our sum list, so it's not going to be printing yes. But if it's anything else, since it's not in the list, we're going to head and print no. And then if we want to see how many values or the length of the values in a list, you just use the lens function. And we can go ahead and do that. And then there should be 10 values, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that is correct. And if you want to know what the data is, so the data type is, this should come back as list. There are other ones that data type can be. So we know that sum list is in fact a list. So if we wanted to look just at a couple types, so if we have x equal to 10, y equal to, we'll just do fruit, not the actual list, just fruit, and then z equal 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if we wanted to go ahead and print the type for x, and then we can go ahead and copy and do it for each one, for y, as well as for z. You can see it tells us the different classes, the different types. So we know that x is an int, which is just an integer for number. We have fruit, which is just a string. So it is just characters. And then, of course, we already know list, and that's what it should be. So this is just a quick video over lists and kind of how to create them and what you can do with them. Thanks for watching.